Hello guys, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
You have any doubts from the previous class? You have any doubts from the previous class? Now you understood what is the flow of static. If anyone is having any doubt, please let me know in the chat box. What is the output for this? P dot Java. I'll be running Q class because that is the class is having the main method. Now this separation initially, then P class has to load to the memory. But before that, Q. Why? Because we are running the queue. Why? Because we are running the queue. We are running the queue. Now what happens? Static members, static members will be loaded and executed from top to bottom. Now this is the static block we have inside the Q class. QSIB first. First Q hyphen SIB, then separation, then P dot test one. Observe here. First, I'm trying to execute the queue. Queue has to be available in the memory. Queue should be loaded to the memory. Now, before executing the main method, all the static members will be initialized and executed from top to bottom. We have one static block inside the queue class. QSIB will be executed. This static block will be executed, then it is printing Q-SIB. Then separation. Then I'm calling a test1 method of the P class. P has to be available in the memory. P is loading to the memory. While P is loading to the memory, all the static members gets loaded, initialized and executed from top to bottom. Now, PSIB first, then from test 1. For the second time, we get only from test 1. Why? Because already P class is available in the memory. This static block will be executing whenever the class is loading to the memory only once. Whenever the class is loading to the memory at that time, only once from top to bottom. This is the only static block we have. This will be executed. Then P dot test 1, this time from test 1 only we printed. Once again P dot test 1, this time also from test 1 will be printed. Then separation. First QXIB, then separation, then PSIB, then 3 times test1 method, then separation. Yes. Come to the next. Class R. Static int I is equal to 10. Syntactically correct or not? Correct. S class method we have. Test method we have, that is static. Static test method, return type is void. Inside the body of the test method of the S class from test. Compile. Come to the from the R class, I'm trying to access the I. From the S class, I'm trying to access the test. In the R class, we have the I that got initialized to 10. In the S class, we have the test method. First, T will be loaded to the memory, coming to the main method. Then R has to be available in the memory. R is loading to the memory. Then while loading, it is initializing I with the 10, then printing the same value, that is 10. Then it is loading the S class. Then it is executing the test method of S class we are getting from test from the S class. Compile and execute the D. Compile and execute the D. Then and from test we are getting. Understood? These three .java files are available in the same folder. These three .java files, R.java, S.java, T.java, three are available in the same folder. In the same folder we have come to the U. USIB U main. Compile U. Come to the main method of the V class. If I run the V class, V main begin, U has to be available in the memory. U will be loaded. While loading U, it is executing what? USIB. Then I'm calling the main method of the U class by supplying ARGS args of the main method from the V class. Possible. Now it is going main method of the U class, printing U main, then separation. Second time, I'm calling the main method of the U class. This time, SIB of the U class won't be executed. Why? Because already U class is available in the memory. Now, from main, U main, it will be printing U main, then V main end, then V main end. First VSIB, then V main begin, then USIB, U main, USIB, U main separation, just U main, then V main end. The name of the class B, name of the Java file, running. Then understood. After the app 3, E class, E class, C class. What is output for this? Initially, I value will be 0. Then in the static block, I got initialized to 10. I value is 10. Here, here what happens? While loading, I is loading with 0 only, then reinitializing with 1. Then here, reinitializing once again with the 2. I value is 2. Now, answer. By loading I, it is loading with the 0 only, this field. Now that field got reinitialized with the 1. Then coming to the next static member, I got reinitialized with the 2. Printing 2. But here, what we are getting? Illegal forward reference error. I'm trying to access the I. I'm trying to access the value of I before declaration. Before declaration, forward reference error. But if it is like this, possible, possible or not? Possible. Is like this. I is equal to 10. Here, what I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to do. See, first, initially, I is loaded with the 0 only. Now, while executing, while executing, this is the first static block. Now, it is only considering it as one field, okay, into field. For that field, 10 is assigning, okay. But in this case, what happens? In this case, you are trying to access that field. You are trying to access that field. You are trying to what? Access that field. Compiler doesn't know it is exactly I. Okay. Compiler doesn't know it is exactly I. But you can initialize possible. Here we are using. Here what we are doing? We are making modification here. Here we are making the modification to that I. But here straight away we are using. Straight away we are trying to use. This one is possible. Modification. But using not possible before declaration. Before declaration is not possible. Illegal forward reference error. This one is possible. Modification is possible because it is considered only as a field. But if you are trying to find out the value of I, compiler exactly doesn't know it is I. That is why illegal forward reference error.
So what if we give I equals to 10 inside the system.out.println, sir?
Please observe. Here I'm giving like this. Here I'm trying to modify, right or wrong? I'm trying to modify. Then also I'm trying to print. I'm trying to modify and also I'm trying to print. What happens in this case? What happens? Hmm? Illegal forward reference are 10. Here, what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to modify. Right, or I'm trying to modify value. But if you say like this, I'm trying to access that type. I'm trying to access that type before declaring. Before declaring. Now, as of now, it is just a field. Okay, into field. For that, I'm assigning 10. Earlier it was loaded with a 0. I'm assigning 10. But it is not got declared yet. I cannot able to use it. Once you declared now, then you can use. Then you can use. Once it got declared. Answer. Now Pakka you can able to use. Now carefully observe this one. Compile and run. Here I'm trying to modify the field value, I value. But if you say directly like this, I'm trying to access that I, but compiler doesn't know it is exactly I that is got declared. That is why. Here, happens. Pakka, am I trying to access the J? Hmm? Am I trying to access the J? Observe carefully. In type and int J while loading 0. With 0 only it is loading. Now, while executing, I got initialized with 0. Then static member, I value is there, currently 0. For that, I'm assigning a j. Now, whether we get illegal forward reference error or what, I value as 0.
Sir, J also will have the 0 for the initial stage, right?
Yes, yes, of course. That is also one field. Now observe. Here, I'm trying to find out the value of j. I'm trying to find out the value of I in the main. The question is whether here at line number 6, whether I get illegal forward reference error or the value of j is going to assign with the I. Compile. What we are getting? Illegal forward reference error. Now here you are trying to access the j, right or wrong? By accessing only you can able to fetch the value. Here j value are supplying to I, but j, what is j? Doesn't know. As of now, we don't know what is j. But simply you can, what you can do, observe carefully. From dot out dot println j is equal to 10. Observe. Here for the j I'm assigning 10. Okay, let me comment this. Now compile. Success. Why? Because I'm not trying to access the j, I'm trying to modify the field value to 10. I'm trying to modify the field value j to 10. Here what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to access the j without declaring j. As of now, compiler cursor is here. Okay. As of now, compiler only knows there are two fields, I and j. Okay, but exactly doesn't know it is I only, exactly doesn't know it is j only. Two fields with the int. Int I is loaded with the 0. Now coming to the next. While loading int I is loading with the 0. While loading j, it is loading with the 0. Now this one got initialized and executed, completed. Coming to the next static member, here that the same field got reinitialized to 10. But as of now, compiler doesn't know what j is. Now, for I, I'm trying to supply the value of j. If I want to supply the value of j, I'm trying to access the j value. I'm trying to access the j value. I'm trying to access the j value. It is something similar to like this. I'm trying to access j. I'm not trying to reinitialize the j. I'm trying to access the value of j. I'm trying to supply the value of j to I. Not possible. Illegal forward reference error. Why? Because j not yet declared. It is just a field. It is just a field as of now.
So what if we remove the static keyword for int j, sir? What?
That is different. That is non-static. Now we are discussing about static.
Okay, sir.
If I remove the static, that becomes non-static.
Like the program will run, sir.
See here, what happens if you remove the static for into j? Now you need to comment this. Okay.
Oh,
Now you can compile. Observe carefully. Here j also should comment, then it will compile. Here j also should comment, then it will compile. That is non-static. That will come to know. As of now,
yes, sir.
Here I'm trying to modify or initialize the value of j. But here I'm trying to access the value of j to supply the value for I. I'm trying to access the j to supply the value for I, but that got not declared yet. J is not declared yet. J is not declared yet. That is one. But the same thing, if you are trying here, observe now. While loading I, loaded with the 0 only. While loading j, loaded with the 0 only. This one initialized and executed with the 0. Now this one initialized and executed with j is equal to 10. Now static. Initializing once again j, 10. Now that 10 value I'm supplying to I. Now I value will be 10, j value will be also 10. Done. But here, if you are keeping that here, I is loaded with the 0, j is also loaded with the 0, but exactly doesn't know it is I only, it exactly doesn't know it is j only. Here I'm trying to make the modification for the field j is equal to 10. I'm not trying to access. Here I'm trying to access. To supply the value for I, I'm trying to access the j. Not possible. But you can able to access what? What you can able to access? Possible, huh? We are getting 10 0 10 done. Observe carefully. I loaded with the 0 only, then j loaded with the 0 only. Now initialized executed 0, then static member, next static member, static block SIB. J is reinitializing with the 10. Now whatever the current value of I, what is the current value of I as of now? 0. 0 only. 0 only is assigning with what? I. 0 only is assigning what with I? 0 only assigning with I. First output will get 10. Okay. Then second, what happens? Here j is initializing with the 10. J is initializing with the 10. Let me give 20. Earlier it was a 10. Earlier, carefully observe. Now, whether j value is 10 or 20. Huh? J value is 10 or 20. What is the j value? What is the j value? Whether 10 or 20. Static members gets executed from what? From top to bottom. That is why we are getting what? 20. That is why we are getting 20. While loading I and loading j, load with the 0 only. Then executing static members from top to bottom. Loaded and executed with the I is equal to 0. Then this is the next static member. Modifying the j value to 10. Then I is equal to I. That means I'm trying to supply I value to the I. Current I value is 0. 0 only. Once again, initialized with I. Then j is equal to 20. Now j got modified to 20. I value is what? 0. J value is 20. Now, observe carefully. You can access I possible, but you cannot access j. You can access I, but you cannot access j. Not possible. I possible. I possible. I is possible. But we cannot access j. Cannot access j. Illegal program. But for the J, once again, and initialize that is possible. That is possible. Understood? What is the output? What is the output? Write the output, everybody. Done. Simple. While I is loading to the memory, loading with the 0 only, calling the test method to supply the value for I. Calling the test method, printing test. First line of output will be test. Then returning a 10 to the caller. Now test will be having the 10. That 10 is assigning with the I. Now I value will be 10. Next static member is this static block. SIB1 will be executed. Then second static block SIB2. Coming to the main method, done is going to print, then I value is 10. I value 10 will be printed. First line of output will be what? Test, then SIB1, SIB2, done, 10. First test, then SIB1, SIB2, done, 10.
So could you please explain it once again, sir?
Sure, sure. Here, class I, while I is loading to the memory, it is loading with the 0. Whenever I class is loading to the memory, all the static members gets loaded with their default values. Now from top to bottom, all the static members has to be initialized and executed. Now static int I. To fetch the value for I, I'm supplying the test method. To fetch the value for I, to get the value for I, I'm calling the test method. Now straight away, the control is going to the test method, printing a test. One statement is there, printing a test, returning a 10 to the caller. Now here caller is test method. Now this test method is having the 10 value. That 10 value is assigning with I. Initialization and execution is got over. Coming to the next static member. This is the next static member. It is the SIB, static initialization block. Printing SIB1. Then straight away it is going to come to the next static block SIP2. It is not going to execute this. Why? Because I'm not trying to call this method. If and only if I give a call to this method, then only it is going to execute.
Yes, sir.
Then only it is going to execute. Where we are calling this? Here we are calling the test method to supply the value for I. Here main method also static. For this main method, JVM is going to call. For this main method, JVM is going to give a call. Without giving a call, it is not going to execute. Now, after executing all the static members, coming to the main method, printing done, then we are printing the I value, that is 10. Write the output.
Sir, one saw the last program. The previous program.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, sir.
Write the output for this. Without executing the main method, before JVM is giving a call to the main method, we can able to execute the main method. That is possible. What is the output? Done. Done. Now. What is there to think here? Test begin, then 0, then test end, then then 0, 0 na, then confusion, confusion. Carefully observe. This is the first static member. While I is loading with the 0 only, is equal to test method. To fetch the value for I, I'm calling the test method. The return value of test method I'm assigning with I, calling the test method. Test begin, first line of output will be test begin, then calling the main method by supplying null, possible, without executing the main method. Before JVM is executing the main method, we can able to execute the main method by supplying null as the argument. Main colon current value of I will be what? 0. Current value of I will be 0. Now test end returning 20 to the caller. Caller is test. Now 20 is going to assign with I. 20 is going to assign with I. Next static member is this static block. SIB begin calling the main method by supplying null as the argument. Now current value of I is 20, main colon 20. Then SIB end. Coming to the main method, main colon 20. Understood? Understood or not? What might be the output for this? What might be the output for this? 100, 200, done. Programs are repeating. I'll give you a program. Everybody has to write the output. I will give you 5 minutes of time. Start now. Visible? I'll do one thing. I'll share it. Otherwise, I'll share it. Everybody has to write the output. Guys, I'll be sharing this in the group, WhatsApp group. Everybody try to write the output. Start right. ಆಯ್ತೇನ್ರಿ? ಹ? See, whoever are able to show the output, I'll be tracking those information that will be updated to your performance. That will be updated to your performance tracker. That will be updated to your performance tracker. Done? Are you getting this much output? Nobody has sent the proper output. Observe this much output you should get. Confusion, huh? Confusion?
Yes, sir.
What? What confusion is there? What is there to get confused? What decrement? See, this one is plus is equal to means what? Simple. Current value of I plus 1. That's it. Okay. It is simply I plus 1. Plus is equal to means what? I plus 1. J plus is equal to means what? J plus 1. J plus I. J plus I. See, simple. You don't know basic mathematics, use the calculator. Okay, addition and subtraction. Addition only. There is no subtraction also. Okay. Sir. Static int I. I is loading with the value 0 only initially. J is loading with the 0 only. Test 1 I'm calling. Test 1. Test 1 I'm calling. Come to the test 1. I'll write the output also parallelly. Here. Test 1. Test 1 colon current value of I. Colon colon 0 comma J colon. What I'm trying to do first, calling the test 1 to fetch the value for I. Now test 1 colon I colon 0 comma J colon 0. Now I plus 3, current value of I is what? 3. Observe carefully. Current value of I is what? I'll keep track of the INT value. Current value of I is 0. 0 plus 3 is what? Current value of J is what? 0. 0 plus 3. 4. 3. Okay. Now calling the main method by supplying the null. Calling the main method by supplying the null. Now main colon I value is what? 3. I value is
3.
now I got reinitialized to current value of I is what?
3.
Plus 9. Okay. Then current value of J. Current value of J. 3 plus I value is what? 9. 3 plus 9. What is the value? 3 plus 9. What is I value? I value 12. Okay. 12 plus 3. Sorry. Actually, J value is what? J value is 3. 3 plus 12. Okay. 50. Are we getting these two lines proper?
Yes, sir.
Now, what is the current value of I? What is the current value of J? I is 12, J is 15. Proper. Now, remaining part of the test 1. Test 1 again. Test 1 again. I colon current value of I is what? 12. Then comma current value of J is what? 15. Now I plus 4. Huh? 16. Then J plus is equal to, sorry here, J plus is equal to I means J plus I. Current value of J is what? J plus I value is what? 16. 31.
29.
31. 31. Now returning I plus J plus 5. See, what happens? 52. 52, right or wrong? 52 is going to store with I. 52 is going to store with I. 52. Current value of I is what? 52. To fetch the value for J, we are calling test 2. We are calling test 2. Test 2. Test 2. Test 2 again. Test 2. Okay. Test 2. I colon current value of I is what? 52. Comma current value of J is what? Are we getting this output properly? 52, 31. Now, I is equal to I plus a 7. 52 plus 7 is what? Huh? 7 plus 2 is what? 9. 59. Now, A plus I. A plus I. Okay. Here, what happens? Earlier it was 52. 52. Now carefully observe. Observe carefully. Current level is 52 plus 6. See here, we are still we are in what? Here, right or wrong? Not test 2 again. Here only we are. Okay. 52 plus 6. 58. 58. Okay. Now J plus I. I value is what? 58. 31 plus 58. 31 plus 58. 89. 89. Current J value is 89. Calling the main method by supplying the null. Calling the main method by supplying the null. Main colon current I value is what? 58. I plus is equal to 9 means plus 9. 58 plus 9. Huh? 67. Then J plus is equal to I means J plus I. I value is what? 67. 89 plus 67. 156. 156 is the value. Now, remaining part of the test 2. Test 2 again colon I value. Current I value is what? 67 comma J value is what? 156. Are we getting this output properly? We are getting this output properly. Now, I is equal to I plus 7. Prapanch 74. 74 plus 74. 156 plus 74. 156 plus 74. 230. Now, I plus J plus 8. Huh? 230, 74. 74 plus 230 plus 8. 312. 312 is going to store with the J. 312. 312 is going to store with the J. These two got over. Right or wrong? These two got over. Now, next static member. It is the static block. Static block. SIB colon I colon current value of I is what? 24 comma current value of J is what? 12. I plus 1 75 plus 75. J plus is equal to I means 312 plus 75. 312 plus 75. 387. 387. Now calling the main method by supplying the null. Calling the main method by supplying the null. Main colon. Current value of I is what? 75. Plus 9. 75 plus 9. 84. Plus 84. 387 plus 84. 387 plus 84. 471. 471. Coming to the remaining part of the SIB. SIB again. SIB again. Current I value is what? 84. Current J value is what? 471. Then I plus 2, 86. Then J is equal to 86. J is equal to J plus I. 471 plus 86. 471 plus 86. 557. 557. Coming to the main method, all the static blocks are got over, right or wrong? All the static blocks are got over. Now coming to the main method, main colon current value of I will be 6 plus 9 plus 9 86 plus 9 70 95 plus 95 557 plus 95 652 652. You can also print here, no issues at all. Last values. Main and main and I value and j value. So you will get the output as main end I value 95 comma j value 652. Once again compile and run. Here actually you should include, I have included one more statement in the main end, right or wrong? I have included one more statement in the main end. That is why it is coming main end. If you remove it, no issues at all. Here, just delete it to avoid the confusion. Compile and run. This much output. But at last, I value will be 95, J value will be 652. Fine. Now we will start with the main important concept of the object-oriented programming language, non-static. Object creation, non-static. Non-static. Simply say non-static, non-static. Non-static. If we observe, int I got declared without static. If any variable got declared without static in the class context, we are calling it as non-static variable. Non-static variable. Non-static variable without static. Non-static variable. Non-static variable. Inside the main method, I'm trying to access the I. Inside the main method, I'm trying to access the I. Non-static I, I'm trying to access within the static method. Main method is a static method. Main method is a static method. Inside the main method, I'm trying to access the non-static I. Now observe. the error we are getting? Non-static variable I cannot be referenced from a static context. Non-static variable I cannot be referenced from a static method without a reference variable. Non-static variable, non-static member cannot be referenced from a static context without a reference variable. Without a reference variable. How we are going to get the reference variable? While creating the object, we get the reference variable. While creating the object, we get the reference variable. By using that reference variable, we can able to access this I. Straight away, you cannot be able to access I. I is non-static. Non-static variable cannot be accessed from the static context without a reference variable. Not possible. Static, if it is static, directly you can use. Directly you can able to access. But here it is non-static. Non-static variable cannot be referenced, cannot be accessed within the static context without a reference variable. Without a reference variable. Which one? Non-static method. Earlier it was non-static variable. It is non-static method. Test is the non-static. I'm not declaring this test method with the static keyword. Without a static, it is non-static. 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 Non-static test method. Non-static test method. Non-static test method we cannot be able to use inside the static context without a reference variable. If it was static, directly you can call without a reference. Possible. Or by using class reference you can able to call static method. Remember or not? But here it is non-static. Non-static member cannot be referenced from a static context without a reference variable. How we are getting the reference variable? By creating the object. What is this? Static method I have, test method. Inside the static method I'm trying to use the I. It is non-static. Not possible. Syntactically not proper. Test 2 is static, test 1 is non-static. Test 1 I cannot call inside the test 2 without a reference variable. Not possible. Compile time error. Inside the static block also not possible. This is also a static context. Not possible. I is a non-static. Without a reference I'm trying to use. Not possible. E. Not possible. Test 1 is non-static. That test 1 I'm calling within the static block. It is a static context. I'm trying to access, use without a reference. Not possible. Compile time error. How to create the object? How to create the object? Class name, reference variable name. This reference variable name can be anything. Assignment operator, new operator, new keyword or new operator. Class name, then constructor call. You'll come to know what is constructor. You'll come to know what is constructor. Class name, reference variable name, assignment operator, new operator or keyword, class name along with the call to a constructor. Constructor calling. While creating the object, we are calling the constructor. While creating the object, we are calling the constructor. You'll come to know what is that constructor. G1 is the reference variable. That G1 reference variable name can be anything. Can be anything. Carefully observe. Carefully observe. I'm creating the object G. I'm creating the object G. G object. That object is referred by. That object is referred by. That object is referred by G1. That object is referred by G1. I'm creating an object for G class. That object is referred by G1. While creating the while creating the object to class, all the non-static members gets loaded to the memory. Right? While creating the object to class, all the non-static members gets loaded to the memory with their default values. With their default values. All the non-static members gets loaded to the memory while we are creating the object to class. It is loading with their default values. They are loading with their default. Now I will be loading with the value 0. I is non-static. I is non-static. G reference G reference reference type is G type. Reference name is G1. Reference type is G type. Reference name is G1. It is pointing to one G class object. While we are creating the object to G class, it is loading all the non-static members. In case of variables, it is loading with their default values. It is loading with their default values. I will be loading with the 0 because of int. Because of int. Now, if you try to access the I, what is the current value of I? 0. Straight away, you cannot able to access by using the reference we are accessing. G1 dot I. G1. G1 dot I. G1 is pointing to one object of I. G1 dot I. What is the current value of I? 0. 0 will get it. Operation success. Try to run. 0 will get.
Sir, int I will have a default value of 0 if it is non-static also. I. Int I will have a default value 0 when it is non-static also.
Here, what is the type of I? What is the type of I?
Int.
Int type. For int type, the default value is 0. It is similar to static. For double type, the default value is 0.0. For the Boolean type, default value is false. While creating the object to this class, all the non-static members gets loaded to the memory. In case of variables, it is loading with the corresponding default values. In case of I, type is int, that is why it is loading with 0. Now I'm trying to access the I by using the reference G1. G1 dot I is 0. Test method is non-static. Test method is non-static. Inside the main method is static. I'm creating the object to H class. While creating the object to H class, all the non-static members get loaded to the memory. This test method also loading to the memory. By using the reference, I can able to access the test. By using the reference, I can able to access the test. Simply print something. Println from test. Compile, execute. Compile and execute. Contest done very. So in this case, what happens? In this case, what happens? Here, which type of object is this? Which type of object is this? H type. Object. Now it is pointed by H1. While creating the object, all the non-static members gets loaded to the memory. Likewise, test also it is non-static. Test also is loaded into the memory. Test also will be loaded into the memory. By using H1, I can access test. By using H1, I can be able to access test. Possible. We can able to create an object inside the static method. Possible or not? Not possible. Why? Why not possible? Inside the static method also, we can able to create the object. If it is not a static, also I can able to create the object. But here, what is the thing? Inside the static context, you cannot able to access the non-static member without a reference variable. Inside the static context, without a reference variable, you cannot able to access the non-static member. But here, inside the static method, you can able to create the object. Main method also static. We have created the object. By using reference only, we are accessing. Right or wrong? By using reference only, we are accessing. Without a reference, we cannot able to access. By using the reference, we can able to access. Creating the object, we are getting the reference. Then through that reference, I'm accessing the non-static. All simple, syntactically proper. Here, possible or not. Non-static method. This is static method. Creating the object. By using reference, I'm calling test1. Test1 is non-static. By using reference, I'm calling it test1. All simple. Inside the SIB also, we can able to create the object. Inside the SIB also, we can able to create the object. All simple. The main thing here it is, we should use the reference while using this I. Possible test1 method inside the static block, SIB block, creating the object. By using reference, I'm calling the test1. All simple. creating an object to M. Current value of I is 0. Why? Because whenever creating the object, all the non-static members get loaded to the memory. I is loaded with the 0. M1 dot I, now it is 0. For the same M1, I'm trying to reinitialize. M1 dot I 10. Without a reference, you cannot able to do anything for that variable, for that non-static variable. By using reference only, you can able to do. By using reference only, M1 dot I, M1 dot I is equal to 10. M1 dot I is equal to 10. Reinitialization. Then M1 dot I is what? 10. What is happening internally? Internally, what it is happening? This one is the M class object. M class object. That is referred by M1. By creating the object, I is loaded with the default value, 0 only. If you try to print M1 dot I, what happens? 0 only. Now, M1 dot I, reinitializing with what? 10. If you try to print now M1 dot I, it is 10. Zero 10. What is the output? Two objects are creating.
0, 0, 10, 20.
Two objects are creating. N1 is pointing to one N class object. N2 is pointing to one N class object. These two are different objects. Creating the N class object. While creating the N class object, this I is loading with the default value 0. N1 dot I is 0. Now, second time I'm creating the object for N. This time, a new copy of all the static members will be loaded to the memory. I also will be loading with the 0. This is the new copy, not the same copy, new copy. For every object creation, all the non-static members will be loaded to the memory. For every object creation. Different copies, not the same copy. N2 dot I also is 0. N1 dot I, earlier it was 0. Now I'm reinitializing with the 10. N2 dot I, earlier it was 0. Now I'm reinitializing with the 20. N1 dot I is what? 10. N2 dot I is what? 20. To 0, 10, 20. What is the output? O1 is pointing to one O class object. Here I'm just creating a reference of O type. The name is O2. O type O2 is equal to O1. Wherever O1 is pointing, for the same, O2 also should point. I'm supplying O1 to the O2. Wherever O1 is pointing, for the same O2 also should point. How it is like that? Observe, only one object is creating. One object is creating. Earlier, O1 was pointing. O1. O1. Now if I say O2 is equal to O1, if I say O2 is equal to O1, what that means? Wherever O1 is pointing, for the same, O2 also should point. For the same object, O2 also is pointing. While creating the object to O, I is loaded with the 0 only. Now it is reinitializing with what? O1 dot I means what? 10. 10. If you are trying to print the O2 dot I, it is 10 only because both the references are pointing to the same object. Now O2 dot I 20. This one only is modifying. Why? Because O2 also pointing to the same object. O2 also pointing to the same object. It is 20. Now if you try to print the O2 dot I, 20 only. If you try to print the O1 dot I, 20 only. No, it is not. Both the references are pointing to the same object.
So not understood, sir.
Not understood. Observe. Here, I'm trying to create an object to O class. I'm trying to create an object to O class. Here, when I'm creating the object to O class, all the non-static members will be getting loaded to the memory. In case of variables, it is loading with the default values. Now, int I is loading with the default value 0. Int I is loading with the default value 0.
Yes, sir.
Then, I'm creating what? A new reference of O type. I'm creating a new reference of O type. I'm creating a new reference of O type. Observe carefully. What is this? O type, O1 reference. O type, O1 reference. What is this? O type object, O class object. O class object. Whenever I'm trying to create the object for the O class, this I is loading with the default value 0 only. I is 0. What this means? O2 is equal to O1. What that means? O2 is equal to O1. Wherever O1 is pointing, for the same, O2 also should point. Simply I'm creating a O class reference, not the object. O class reference. Type is O. O class reference, O2. O2. O class reference, O2 I'm creating. For that, what I'm assigning? wherever O1 is pointing, for the same O2 also should point. Simply it means wherever O1 is pointing, for the same O2 also should point. I'm assigning O1 to the O2. I'm assigning O1 to the O2. That means wherever O1 is pointing, for the same O2 also should point. For the same object only it is going to point. For the same object. Okay? Same object, not a different object.
Yes, sir.
Now O1 dot I is equal to 10. O1 dot I is equal to 10. Earlier it was 0. Now reinitializing with 10. If you try to print carefully. O2 dot I. What is O2 dot I? 10. What is O1 dot I? 10 only. Because both are pointing to the same object. O2 dot I is equal to 20. O2 dot I. O2 also pointing to the same object. Earlier it was 10, now it is 20. 20. Now if you try to print O2 dot I, O1 dot I, both will be what? Twenty. Understood?
Yes, sir.
What is the output for this? How many objects are creating? How many objects are creating? Huh? Two na? Observe carefully. Only one object is creating. Only one object. Only one object. Whenever I'm using the new keyword, then only we are creating the object. Whenever I'm using the new keyword or new operator, then only we are creating the new object. Q1 is pointing to one new object. Q1 dot I initializing with the 10. Now I'm creating a new reference for Q time. Q2. Wherever Q1 is pointing, for the same Q2 also should point. Now this object got two references, Q1 and Q2. Now this object got two references, Q1 and Q2 are not two references. By using Q1 also you can access. By using Q2 also you can also use the I by using Q1, by using Q2. By using both you can access I. By using Q1 also, by using Q2 also you can access I. Both. Both will be remaining same, 10 only. Why? Because both the references are pointing to the same object. Now Q2 is changing. Q2 dot I is equal to 20. To try to print Q2 and the Q1 now, 20 only. Right or wrong? At this point of time. Now I'm creating the Q3 reference. I'm supplying Q2. Q2 is already pointing to an object. This object. Wherever Q2 is pointing, for the same Q3 also should point. Q3 also should point. Now that object got three references. By using any of the reference, you can able to access, you can able to use. By using any of the reference. By using any of the reference, you can able to use that object or access that object. Q3 dot I 20 only. Q1 dot I 20 only. Q2 dot I what? All these are 20 only. All these are 20. Understood? It's output. This is the name of the class. This is the reference variable. Int type is non-static. Static void test. This test method is static. Argument is taking what? R type reference variable. R type reference variable obj. Now, main method. Creating the object to R class. Earlier I was 0, now I'm initializing with the 10. A colon R1 dot I is what a 10. I'm calling the test method. Test method straight away I'm going to call. Why? Because test method is static. Straight away I'm calling the test method. By supplying the R1. R1 is already pointing to an object, R class object. Now test method argument also accepting one R type reference. R type reference. Simply it means I'm supplying R1 to this test method argument. Wherever R1 is pointing, for the same obj also should point. Wherever this R1 is pointing, for which object this R1 is pointing, for the same object obj also should point. Now this object got two references, R1 and obj. Now we are trying to modify the content of that object by using obj reference. Obj dot I is equal to 20. Now b colon R1 dot I is 20. Right or wrong? Understood? See here, I'm creating an object to R class. R1 dot I reinitializing with the 10. A colon R1 dot I is 10. I'm calling the test method by supplying the R1 reference. R1 reference. Test method argument also accepting one reference of type R. Simply it is a reference. Reference. Wherever R1 is pointing. For which object R1 is pointing? Currently R1 is pointing to this object. For the same object obj also will be pointing. Simply I'm assigning R1 to obj. Simply I'm assigning R1 to obj. It is similar to R space obj is equal to R1. That means I'm assigning R1 to obj. Wherever R1 reference is pointing, for the same obj also should point. For which object R1 is referring? For the same object, obj also should point. Now this object got two references, R1 and obj. Using any of the reference, you can able to modify the content of that object. I'm using obj data type. Obj data type is equal to 20. Earlier it was 0. No, sorry, earlier it was 10. Earlier it was 10. Now I'm reinitializing with 20. Earlier it was 10. Now I'm reinitializing with the 20. Coming to the main method, b colon r1 dot I, the updated value that is 20. Very important. You should understand.
Sir, in static void test that R object, instead of R object we can write R1, then also it will be working, right?
Instead of this obj, see here, this also I can give.
No, I'm saying that capital R and OBJ, instead of that we can write that test R1, so R1.
Instead of test R1. Why you give test R1? Like this, huh? Like this, huh?
No, below that we have in main that system.out.println A and then test R1. In that format, test R1.
Here, what you are trying to say that can I give the obj? Huh?
Not here, sir. It's fine here. That R1 is fine. I'm asking in the static void test, instead of R OBJ R1,
Huh.
small R1.
Like this, huh?
Then remove the capital R. Is it right now?
Yes. Observe. Is it right? Is it right? Why? Why not right? We are not giving what? We are not giving what? Hmm?
Object, sir.
What object?
Reference type.
Carefully observe. R1 is the name of the variable. For that variable, I need to specify the type, right or wrong? I need to specify the type. What is the type of R1? What is the type of R1? Type of R1 is what? R type. Type of R1 is what? R type. R type reference. R type reference. R1. Wherever this R1 is pointing, for the same, this R1 also should point. Now, this is also. Try to compile. Same output will get. To avoid the confusion, I give an obj. This object got two references, R1 and obj. Wherever this R1 is pointing, for the same, obj also should point. Using any of the variable, using any of the reference variable, you can able to modify the I.
Okay, so first we have to give the object, then the reference.
It is not object, bro. It is the type. Type of the class. Type of the class. R type obj. R type reference variable name. R type reference variable name. Here, observe carefully. If it is in type, okay, I'm passing 20. What is this? I is the variable name. Int is the type. I is what? Variable name. Int is what? Data type. Data type. I'm passing 20. I'm passing 20. Compilation is proper now. Here, 20 I'm supplying. Here, what is this? In type. 20 I'm supplying. This 20 is assigning with what? I. This 20 will be assigning with what? I. If you try to print the I, what happens? What happens? Twenty will be 20 will be printed. 20. Here, likewise, what I'm trying to do, I'm supplying R1. Here, the type is class type itself, R type, the data type. Data type is what? R type itself, class type. Variable name, OBJ. Variable name, OBJ. Now, for OBJ, I'm supplying R1. Simply it means what it means. R1 is equal to for OBJ, I'm supplying what? R1. Wherever R1 is pointing, for the same OBJ also should point. For one object, we have two references now. R1 and OBJ. R1 and OBJ. R1 and OBJ. Here, you can only use the OBJ, not the R1. Why? Because R1 got declared in what? Main method, not in the test method. Here, if you try to use R1 dot type is equal to 10, something like that. Other immediately cannot find symbol name variable R1. Why? Because R1 got declared in R1 got declared in main method, not in the test method. Now this OBJ is local to this test method. Why? Because this OBJ is the argument of test method. Throughout this test method, you can use the OBJ.
Understood, sir.
What happens in this case? Write output. Write output, everybody.
30, 0, 10, 10, 20.
S1 is already used in main.
Thirty, 30. Int is the non-static variable. We have two test methods, both are static. One is taking primitive int type, another one is taking what reference type, another one is taking reference type. In the main method, I'm creating the objective for S class, S1 dot I, 30, A colon S1 dot I is 30. Test one method I'm calling by supplying S1 dot I, not the S1, S1 dot I. S1 dot I is what? 30. 30 I'm supplying, 30 is applied to X. 30. Now X got reinitialized to 10. What is the X value? 10. First line of output, A colon S1 data is what? 30. Then what is the next output? 30. 30. Then X is equal to 10. X value is what? 10. Now B colon S1 data is what? What is that? Huh? 30. 30. Simple. Sir. Test 1 method, test 2 method. Test 1 method is taking primitive X, primitive int X. First line of output, A colon S1 data is 30. Test 1 I'm calling, I'm passing S1 data. S1 data is what? 30. 30 I'm passing. Like this. Calling test 1 method. Calling test 1 method. This 30 is assigning with X. X value is what? Printing 30. The same X value got reinitialized with the 10. Now if you try to print the X, value is 10. Coming to the main method, B colon S1 dot I is what? 30. That is what we are calling. Here, carefully observe. This is the primitive. Okay. Here I'm not trying to modify the reference, not trying to supply the reference. Here directly I'm supplying the value S1 dot I. The value I'm supplying, whatever the value that is inside S1 dot I, that value I'm supplying, that is the value 30 I'm supplying to S1. Now printing 30, modifying to 10, printing 10. Now if you try to print a b colon s1 dot I, it is what? 30 only, remains 30 only. Here what? Here you are passing the reference. Here you are passing the reference. Wherever S1 is pointing, for the same, this S1 also should point. Now it got two references. For the same object, we have two references now. This S1 and this S1. Both are different references. This S1 and this S1. Now by using this S1, I'm trying to modify the value of I. I'm trying to modify the value of I is equal to 30. Earlier it was 30, now it is initializing with 20. C colon S1 dot I is what? 20. This understanding is important. Very important. Basics. Very basics. Basics. Test one method taking the primitive, one of the primitive as the argument index. Here, test one method I'm calling the value I'm supplying and the reference value. Whatever the value that is inside I. 30, 30 I'm supplying. Simply don't confuse. Simply 30. Same output you will get. No issues at all. Same output. Pakka same output. 100%. Any changes is there? No, right? If you pass S1, what happens? No. It will get 30. Here, everything will be 30 or not? Carefully, some changes is there. Some changes is there. Test one I'm calling, yes one I'm passing. But here you get compiled them error. That is different. No issues. This cannot be converted to int. Compiled them error. Here accepting is what primitive type, but the sending is what reference type. Incompatible. Accepting is what? Int type, primitive type, primitive int type. But sending is what? Reference type, not compatible. That is why S1 dot I. I'm trying to access the value of I by using the S1 reference. Now I contains what? 30. 30 value I'm supplying. Value 30 I'm supplying. It is also accepting a primitive value 30. Primitive value 30 is going to assign with X. Accepting is what? Primitive type only. Sending is what? Primitive only. Primitive value. But here, sending is what? Reference type. Accepting is what? Reference type only. Compatible. Compatible. Understood? S1 dot I means what? Primitive value. Simply S1 means what? Reference I'm sending. Reference. Understood or not? Now what happens? Test method return type is the class type, T type. Inside the test method, static test method, I'm getting the object for T, returning the T1. Carefully observe. Inside the main method, creating the P type reference variable, T type reference variable. For that reference, I'm assigning the return value of the test method, return value of the test method, calling the test method, calling the test method. Now here, calling the test method. Inside the test method, I'm creating the object for T. Now, T1 is pointing to one T class object. Same T1 I'm returning. Same T1 I'm returning. Here, returning also T type, accepting also T type. Both are T type. Compatible. Now this test will be having this T1 reference. That reference we are assigning to OBJ. Wherever T1 is pointing for the same OBJ also should point wherever this T1 is pointing. For the same object, OBJ also should point. Now OBJ1.I 0 only. That is the output. What is the output? Creating the U class object inside the test method. Test method return type is U type, class type only. U type. Creating the reference for U1. Creating the object for U class. That object I'm assigning to U1. U1.I. Earlier it was 0. Now I'm initializing with the 20. Now I'm returning the U1 to the caller. Test method is the caller. U1 I'm returning. U type only. Now test method will be having the U1. Test method will be having the U1. That U1 I'm assigning to OBJ. Wherever U1 is pointing, for the same, OBJ also should point. Now OBJ1.I is 20. While returning, I'm creating the new object. While returning, I'm creating the new object. While returning also, you can able to create the object. Here, return type is V type, class type only. While returning, I'm creating the object. This object will be in the test method return. Now this test method return value will be this object. Now this test method return value will be this object, new object. That object I'm assigning to P1. Now B1 is pointing to an object, whatever we have determined. B1 data is what? 0. The return type also class. The returning object also class compatible. Now this test method will be having this object. That object we are assigning to B1. Now B1 is pointing to that object. What is the output? In the main method, creating the object for W, obj1.I was 0, now it is 20. Carefully observe now. Creating the new reference for W class, RV is the reference name. I'm assigning what? Test method return the value to the RV. Now, while calling the test method, I'm passing the obj reference. Obj is already pointing to an object. For the same object, this W1 also should point. For the same object, this W1 also should point. Now this object contains two references. What is the references? Obj and B1, W1, obj and W1. Obj and W1. Now creating the new object inside the test method. W2 is equal to new W. Now carefully observe. W1 data is 20. W1 data is what? 20. That 20 is assigning to W2 data. Earlier it was 0, now it is assigning with the 20. Now returning what? W2. Not 20 pro. Simply W2 I'm returning. Not W2 data. Simply I'm returning what? W2. Reference I'm returning. That reference is assigning it to test, means that reference is returning to test method. Test method return type is what? W type. Then returning what? W type. Reference only W2. Now test method will be having W2 reference. Test method will be having the W2 reference. Now that W2 is assigning to RB. Wherever this W2 is pointing for the same object, RB also should point. Wherever this W2 reference is pointing for the same, this RB also should point. This RB is now pointing to this object. We got the two references, W2, then RB for this object. For this object, OBJ and W1. Now RB dot I is what? 20 only. 20. Last program. Write the output. In the same line, I can able to create a new object using comma as a separator. Same class object. Two objects got created. X1 is pointing to one object. X2 is pointing to another object of X. X1 is pointing to one object of X. x2 is pointing to another object of x. Both are different objects. Both are different objects. Observe carefully. Diagrammatically, we can able to main method. x1 is pointing to one object. x2 is pointing to another object. x1 is pointing to one object. x2 is pointing to another object. Both are x class objects only. Class object. X class object. What is the reference? x1, which is x2. Fine. Now, while loading I, it is loading with what? 0 only. I is equal to 0. I is equal to 0. Now it is reinitializing with what? 10 and 20. Calling the test method by supplying reference. Carefully observe reference, not the primitive value. Reference x1 comma x2. x1 comma x2. Calling test method. Now coming to the test method. Test method. obj1 carefully observe. x1 is applying to this. X2 is supplying to this. This much understood? Now, this is the test method. This is the test method. Test method. Int I got declared inside the test method. For that test, for this int I, I'm supplying what? obj1.i. obj1.i. Int I. For int I, obj1 dot. obj1.i means what? x1.i. Simple. That is equal to what? 10. Now, swapping is happening. I is the temporary variable. Swapping is happening. For obj1 dot I, I'm supplying obj2 dot I. For obj1 dot I, supplying obj2 dot I. What is obj1 dot I? I'm supplying obj2 dot I. obj2 dot I means x2 dot I. x2 dot I is what? 20. Now, what happens? Earlier it was 10. Earlier it was 10. Now it is reinitializing to 20. This is what? obj2 dot I is equal to I. obj2 dot I is equal to I. What is current I value? 10. Current I value is 10. But 10 is assigning to obj2 dot I. Earlier obj2 dot I was what? Oh, that is called. It is assigning with what? With the 10. Now obj1 data is what? Obj2 data is what? Coming to the main method. Here both are same. Carefully observe. obj1 obj1 is equal to x1. Okay. obj2 is equal to x2. Now printing these two. obj1 dot I or x1 dot I means what? obj2 dot I or x2 dot I means what? Before calling this test method, before calling this test method, before calling this method, 10, 20, now it is what? 20 and 10. Before calling and after calling. Before calling test method and after calling test method. Before calling test method is what? 10, 20. After calling this is another. Let's show this one. So it is very important. Try to practice it. Try to analyze it. Now, next concept is constructor that we will continue in the next class. Now I'll take the attendance. Please wait. Vinay MS?
Present, sir. Vinay, present, sir.
Yes. Arshita HH. Arshita HH. Chaitra VK.
Present, sir.
Chita Samit.
Present, sir.
Kiran R. Syed Afsar Pasha Quadri. Chanapa. Nishita Prakash.
And header of the
Present, sir.
Chandan K. Nandish Babu.
Yes, sir.
Ram Kumar, Rakshit Kumar HP,
Present, sir.
Anil Kumar Yam,
Present, sir.
Preetham BR, Gangadeep, Gangadeep,
Present, sir.
Salma Taj, Salma Taj, Tarun Singh,
Yes, sir.
Abhishek Singh,
Yes, sir.
Gagan Gosavi,
Yes, sir.
Shalini,
Present, sir.
Kamala,
Present, sir.
Basavaraj P, Yashaswini NR, Madesha HP,
Present, sir.
Mohammad Sufyan, Mohammad Sufyan, Ahmad Omar,
Yes, sir.
Yamuna Yam,
Present, sir.
Sami,
Sir, Mohammed Sufyan, present, sir.
okay. Sami Uzama,
Present, sir. Mohammed Sufyan, present, sir.
Shreya S, Shreya S,
Present, sir. Present, sir.
Harish D, Harish D, Darshan S, Chaitanyam,
Present, sir.
Chaitanyam, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, guys, thank you so much. We'll continue in the next class.
Sir, Harish D is present, sir.
Okay, fine, Harish. Okay. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.